So unfortunately, got some scary or sad news. As you know, Carolyn and I have lived here for 3 years. We bought this property for $4,200, had a well on it. It wasn't functioning well, but we fixed it up. Built a little tiny house, had some solar panels, and now we have some chickens. And we've become quite independent. There was several times now that the electric grid has went down here in the area, and I didn't know anything about it. There was 2 times it went down, and the neighbor that used to live over here, but he's moved, he would come over, hey, you got some coffee I can have? Because he was on electric and he couldn't make any coffee. I tell you, the freedom of living off grid, not being tied to anything, not being worried about anything, is just an amazing feeling. The nice thing about living off grid is you're free of failures. Any failure you'll have is your failure, and you can fix your failures. I have found that when I say DIY, people hear me better. I DIY'd my own solar panels, built them myself. And if you want to see how to do that, you can go to my channel, go to playlist, and in the playlist somewhere you'll see solar panels. And I've got several solar panels outlining every piece that you need and how to build it. And I use Rich Solar. You can buy those off Amazon. You can buy almost everything off Amazon. The batteries are lead acid batteries. Buy them at Walmart. Now, the thing I think helps people is when I say it's really simple. First of all, you're not gonna be able to electrocute yourself with 12 volts. I mean, if you had your hand in water and all that, yeah, maybe, but just generally speaking, I've showed it in the playlist, you can touch both positive and negative, and it's not gonna phase you. You won't notice. It's gotta be wet. Like a 9-volt battery, put it on your tongue, it'll tingle a little bit. That same 9-volt battery you put your fingers on, nothing. Same principle with the 12 volts. So you don't have to worry about electrocuting yourself. Of course, then all you have to know is red goes to red, or red goes to positive, and black goes to black, or black goes to negative. And if you can just follow suit with that, it's just super simple. And I encourage everybody to do it. You should be able to set up a system with one battery, maybe $500. Now, a lot of people will say, get a solar generator. But a solar generator is gonna be much more expensive because you have the assembly cost. If you DIY this, $80 for a solar panel, $100 for a charge controller, $100 for an inverter, $100 for a battery. And then you can grow it quite easily. And with my system, we run a refrigerator and a Windows tablet, so I can do YouTube videos, and 2 phones. And that's all we need. Now, the key to that is the refrigerator. Now, if you don't can your food like we do, we can all our meat. So if the refrigerator went out, we'd only lose a few weeks worth of food. But that's if we didn't can it. I would immediately start up the canner and start canning everything I could before the meat went bad. If the freezer just went out, we'd get 3 to 6 days before the meat would start to spoil. If you ran a freezer, you're gonna want a backup power supply. Now, some people will say, what about a generator? And I've tried to explain the story. My grandmother, she had a power outage for 2 weeks, and she had $4,500 worth of beef in these freezers, and they all went bad. Now, if she'd had a generator, she might have been able to run the generator for about a week with all the gas cans she had laying around. But if you got one of those big generators, those run a lot of gas. Maybe a gallon every 4 hours. Now, ours runs a gallon about every 11 hours. It's that inverter generator. Champion builds them. Like today's pretty cloudy. We use that to charge our batteries if we need to. So if you had a solar panel and it was a cloudy day like this, power outage happened and you didn't have enough power to really run your freezers off your batteries, all you really need to do is just run the generator for a couple hours, charge the batteries back up, and let the batteries run it for the next 6 to 8 hours. It's a lot better than just plugging your freezer right into the generator and running it full time. So power outages do happen and things do go bad. I've been trying to warn folks and unsuccessfully warning folks that things are bad are going to happen in the United States. I made a community tab poll, and again, if you want to see my community tab polls, you can go over to my channel, go over to the community tab, and I have all these poles. And I asked the question, do you think the grid in the United States could go down this winter? And I think it was about 50-50. 50% of the people said no. I mean, if it goes down, it's going to be going down just for a little bit, no big deal. If it goes down, it's going to be isolated. That's not true. And it's not me saying it now. It is Bloomberg News. Now, I'm not a big fan of Bloomberg News, but I do rely on them for these kind of warnings. Bloomberg has nothing to gain from this. Even though we disagree politically and all that, if he writes this, then his party is going to suffer for this. So I have to kind of believe that maybe he's got something going on here. But the headline is, a quarter of Americans at risk of winter power blackout grid emergencies. And so the first paragraph, this is all you really need to know. Large swaths of North America may face blackouts and other energy emergencies during bouts of extreme colds this winter, as coal and natural gas supplies tighten, according to U.S. regulatory agency. Now, it goes on to talk about most of the Midwest and the eastern seaboard are at risk. That's really interesting to me that it's the East Coast. I mean, I expected them to shut down electric here in the Midwest because, well, I don't want to get into too many political conspiracy theories, but I expect it here in the Midwest. But on the East Coast, that's where their voters are. Why would they shut that down? Well, it goes on to say the reason is there's limited amount of fossil fuels. There's not enough coal and oil and all that. Well, of course, we know they've been trying to minimize all that. And they're warning people that in the middle of winter, when it's the coldest, you're going to lose electric. Now, for some reason, people in the United States just cannot fathom that that could happen here in the United States. They just can't believe it. Yet we see it all the time. I always bring up the Texas one. Texas, the most stable state in the nation when it comes to electricity, had a 2-week power outage. I think mostly statewide, nearly statewide. People died. 2 weeks. Can you live 2 weeks without power in the middle of winter? Some people are going to say, yeah, you know, I got wood stove and that kind of stuff. And I remember when I was, I don't know, maybe 30 years old, I lost power in the middle of the winter. And it was for a couple days. And we had a backup kerosene heater. And we also had this little generator, a little 1,000-watt generator, and a space heater. Well, me, my daughter, and my wife, at the time, she's my ex-wife now, got into the living room and we turned on the space heater with the generator. We put the kerosene heater in the kitchen, bathroom area. It was an old house. It was all hodgepodge together because we didn't want the pipes freezing. I cannot for the life of me figure out why I didn't let the water drip. I even knew back then you could let the water drip, so I don't know why we didn't do that. So we had the kerosene heater in there, and it was nice and toasty in there, and we're all huddled around this little space heater. Well, I mean, I was not ready. Had not thought it through. Who thinks that the power is going to go out in the middle of winter? So now I've got two stories. My grandmother in the springtime, me in the wintertime, oh, and 3 in Texas. Well, here they're warning us it's going to happen, and people are still not believing it's going to happen. They're just fear-mongering. I get that a lot. You're just fear-mongering. Or I'm just suggesting that maybe you take a look at what your options are. Now, I'm a big advocate of wood heat, but people will say I can't have wood heat or I don't have trees. Well, yeah, I mean, this is nice, all these trees, but I haven't cut any of these trees down. I only cut down unhealthy trees. I'll show you an example of a tree that could have been severely damaged. I've talked about these before. This is a once upon a time twin tree. 1 stump, 2 trees. Well, you can see it rotted and only let one side survive. Well, there was a huge risk. Both sides could have died on that. So I went around and I cut all the one side of the twins to save the trees. That we've already used that firewood. That was our first year here when we had the heat exchanger. It was very inefficient. But everything else that we have gotten, 15 years worth of firewood, 15 cords of firewood, we got from free. We went to Facebook Marketplace. On there, you'll see all the time, people are giving away free firewood. They cut down a tree in their yard and they tell you to come and either cut it up or just pick it up or whatever. So we do. Now, we have this app and it's called Free Stuff. Don't ask me what it's called, because it's called free stuff. You go to the app store and you type in free stuff, and there's an app that says free stuff. And on that app, it monitors Facebook Marketplace, and I think Craigslist. And so every time something free pops up on those websites, it sends you a notification. I would say at least once a week, maybe every 2 weeks, it sends me a notification of free firewood. So you can't use firewood. I can't get firewood anywhere. You can't use that as an excuse. You can get it everywhere, and it's free. Now, think about this. If I cut down some of these trees and I were to sell them, I could get $200 per cord of wood. On an average size house, a cord of wood lasts you about a quarter of the winter. So you need about 4 cords. So you're talking $800 to heat your home for the winter. Or you can go out and get it free. It's the only heat source I know that you can get for free without cutting down any of your own trees. Now, there are other things you can do for backup heat source. You can get a kerosene heater. You can go to like Ace Hardware, they sell them, or at least they used to. But kerosene's really expensive. I think they said $6 a gallon or something now. And kerosene's always been pricey, even when I was using it. You can get a Buddy heater, Mr. Heater Portable Buddy, but those don't provide you with a lot of heat. 200 square feet. It heats our tiny house, but we're under 200 square feet. It might be 250 square feet. Now you can get a blue flame heater and hook that up to your little propane tanks. They work okay. My dad uses them down in Florida on chilly mornings, and he says he can get 1 gallon of propane to last 4 hours. And you figure that a 20-pound tank, the one you would have, would be 5 gallons. So that's 20 hours you would get out of it with the blue flame heater. Now that's when it's on. Of course, it kicks on and off, so you're going to have to reduce the amount of heat. That's why I think firewood is an amazing heat source, not just as a backup heat source, but just in general. The thing is if you lose electric, you're going to lose YouTube, which means you might lose me. I need you on YouTube watching my videos. So if you'll click this up next box at it, so if I can inspire you to play it safe this winter. Get off the grid before they shut you down. Thanks for watching.